कुछ स्टोरीज होती हैं जो आपको ना स्पीचलेस कर देती हैं। उन्हीं में से एक स्टोरी आज मैं आपके साथ लेकर आ रही हूँ इस पॉडकास्ट चैनल पे। व्हाट वाज दैट सरप्राइजिंग learning which you have learned from your journey? So what all are the major biases? Though I know few, but I would like to hear from you. Can you just quickly tell me what all are the real steps or the strategies where the organization should follow to make sure that the people should feel inclusive?
So, broadly, LGBTI plus term revolves around two aspects or three aspects of a human being.
The one and only women leader who's working with Global Bank. Let me welcome Miss Amita on HR Scoop. Hello, ma'am.
Hello,
How are you?
I am good, thank you. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, and I'm really happy that you said yes for HR Scoop and being here on Saturday.
Yeah, and when it's raining,
Yeah,
especially.
and Pune.
Yeah, Pune.
Yes. So, first of all, I'm really excited to know more about you since the discussion we had that was not that long, of course. So I wanted to know more about your journey, how you started, and the kind of experience like global bank you're associated with, and you're working as a senior vice president. So मैं जानना चाहती हूँ बहुत अच्छे से डिटेल में आपके बारे में, आपकी जर्नी के बारे में.
Sure. So, yes, I work in the capacity of a senior vice president with a captive of a global bank. So, basically, I work in banking technology. In fact, all my experience has been into banking technology, which includes various spheres of banking, whether it is core retail banking or investment banking, corporate banking, private banking, and currently wealth. So, my desk job includes, of course, working on the products, technology solutions, which fall in the remit of wealth
Okay.
for a bank. So yes, that is how it has been as far as my desk job is concerned. Very much sitting with the engineering teams, with the business, global teams, global stakeholders. One of those days where you feel like pulling your hair out and why me? Why is it happening with me? One of those phases. And then there are those moments where you are validated, celebrated, your accomplishments, you achieve something, whether it's a solution or something which validates you in terms of accomplishments. um, you know Climbing up the corporate hierarchy is also one of those from the monetary aspects perspective. So yes, the journey has been enriching. It presented several opportunities which pushed me to learn, to excel. At the same time, my accomplishments have also been recognized. So it has been a fulfilling experience so far. Along with that, then in my personal space, of course, I enjoy backpacking. And the typical question, mountains or beaches, which we see around. So for me, it's always mountains. Mountains have been a therapy for me.
Wow.
So I love being in the mountains. I do mandalas. I am a cat mom. They keep me on my toes. Um, and then there is this other pro bono aspect which I indulge in, especially on weekends. That is advocacy. So, the intent or the motive behind advocacy is leveraging my lived experience to influence minds, to drive inclusion forward, to help people understand the various diversity, which is a reality, it's not a myth,
Yep.
especially when we talk about LGBTI plus individuals. So that is where then weekends mostly are leveraged to drive inclusion forward. And that is where I'm fortunate and happy that today we are having this conversation.
Wow. Wow. But many of the audience doesn't even know the meaning of LGBTQI. So can you please elaborate it more?
So maybe Deepika, I will not fully agree with that question now. Why? Because if you see, um, like
This term
this,
is
yes,
missing
yes,
in the corporate. Yeah.
this very month, or this very last couple of weeks, because of Olympics, the conversation, the debate that we saw,
Yeah.
especially on various mainstream platforms, I'm sure people have been pushed towards the terminology.
Yeah.
So maybe they will not understand the nitty-gritties of it, but every person have been exposed to the term.
Yeah.
So do you want me to explain the term quickly?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
it will be helpful.
Sure, sure, cool. So, broadly, LGBTI plus term revolves around two aspects or three aspects of a human being.
Yeah.
What are those three aspects? One is sexual orientation, other one is gender expression,
Yeah.
third one is gender identity.
Correct.
So, sexual orientation is basically one person's emotional, physical, romantic attraction towards the other person. In most of the cases, we see a man attracted towards a woman attracted towards a man. That is where they become heterosexual people. But in a few cases, a man is attracted towards another man, a woman is attracted towards another woman. And that is where the man we call gay, women we call lesbians. So this is all about sexual orientation. More often than not, sexual orientation is hidden. It is not visible to the eyes unless the individual want to come out, discuss about it. The other one is gender expression. Gender expression is something that you see with your naked eyes. So when you see a person, what their appearance is, how they are presenting themselves in terms of, let's say, their hairstyle, their clothing, their overall appearance, that is what is gender expression. And then comes the term gender identity. Gender identity is an individual's innate feeling about their own self, what they identify themselves with. And gender is also, if you see, a societal construct. Now, in again, most of the cases, sexual orientation, gender expression, gender identity are very much in sync, and we are, surrounded by such individuals in, good number. Majority of population is this. But then there are certain individuals where these three things are not in sync. So just I explained lesbians and gays. Similarly, then we have trans persons, transgender women, transgender men, where there is this incongruence, gender incongruence, or the other term is gender dysphoria, where the gender identity, expression is not in sync what they identify with. And that is where these individuals decide to go through, not all, but a few, through the journey of gender transition to embrace their true self. When we talk about gender expression, then there are these individuals who are gender fluid, gender non-binary, where what you see to your eyes might not be their gender. So looking at the appearance, the person might come across as a feminine person, but they might identify themselves as non-binary, not fitting into any spectrum. So that is how then LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexuals, again, it is about sexual orientation, individuals who are attracted to two or multiple genders, trans persons, about gender identity, and then the other terms. So this is how the overall LGBTI plus
Wow.
umbrella is.
I have seen lot of videos, lot of, since I'm also a posh trainer, so, and diversity and inclusion, but the best definition ever.
Thank you.
And so detailed one and the beautiful you explained. I'm glad. So what's your take, like what kind of challenges you face, like since you are on that level, that's today, but what's your about your past journey and how you came on that level, what kind of crucial moments as a personal professional front?
Um, so I come from a small town. So coming from a small town and trying to venture into corporate in a big city, So, especially when you are a fresh graduate, even today, if you see, there is a skills gap. What you're taught,
Yeah.
even in your engineering courses, and what is actually required on job, there is a gap. I'm not saying the gap is big, but there is a gap. And that is where first thing that hits you after you venture into corporate or employment sector, um, how will I bridge that particular gap? What I need to do to augment my skill? Okay, and that is where then your corporate journey starts. Again, it is up to that individual. I mean, it is also about having a check around your surrounding to analyze what are the supportive um, enablers you have around you, which you can leverage, which can help you augment your skills. And it is not a one time activity. I mean, skill augmentation is a constant process which goes hand in hand with learning, which you have to do every day, every time in corporate, for you also to just not discharge your current duties but also to excel. For example, let's say today I'm at a certain level and I want to step up to the next level. So first thing I'll have to do is analyze what is the skills gap,
Yeah.
my current level and my next level, and then again analyzing what can I do to bridge that gap.
Right.
So that's a constant effort, that is a constant journey, and various things influence this journey. Major factor, I would say, people. So definitely, regardless of which spectrum of diversity you are from, finding allies and leaning on those allies is extremely, extremely important, because we can't really work in silos. It is eventually about collaboration, cooperation, and that is where leaning on to allies helps a lot. Um, then imposter syndrome, so let's say when somebody is part of a lesser represented group, or let's say somebody who has a journey like me, which is road less traveled. So what I also struggle with is having a relatable reference point or role model. Usually, for example, if somebody want to excel in cricket, so you have celebrated role models, which are there in the public remit. So you have a reference point that, okay, during especially difficult times, you have a reference point which you can refer to.
Correct.
Or let's say a woman wants to be an astronaut, woman want to excel in corporate, or let's say politics. There are reference points, but my journey struggle was having a relatable reference point, and that is where it was more like making mistakes, learning from it, and not repeating the mistakes. So that is one of the mantras which I followed and I continue to follow, because usually when you are stuck at a crossroad, that is where then now, when you don't have a reference point, you struggle a little. You have to take then risks also, count on your enablers, lean on your allies, take a decision, maybe it can go wrong, bounce back, start a day afresh with a blank slate, and keep on going. Other thing is showing up.
Yeah.
Showing up, I think, is extremely, extremely important. And I don't believe in that philosophy that one has to be positive all the time and energetic all the time, because we can't. We are humans.
Yeah.
And emotions are very much part of our being, part of our existence. That is where having a poker face all the time, showing no emotion on your face, that is not something which I'll endorse, and that is not something which I look up to in a leader. Being honest with your emotions, acknowledging acknowledging your emotions, acknowledging the fact that not every day is the same, but at the same time acknowledging your triggers also, and then maybe learning to navigate around it. You might not have solutions to everything and all the triggers, you might not be able to pacify those triggers, but what matters is how will you navigate to it, navigate through it. Perfection is not something which we need to celebrate, because if you see the times that we are living today, distraction is all around us. And I'm not saying distraction is, I'm not referring to social media. Even you pick up any job, the kind of hats somebody needs to wear in today's times, those number of hats also become a distraction.
Actually.
And if you don't wear those hats, then you yourself are curbing your learning. Forget about your progression opportunities. That is where you need to venture out. You need to explore those hats. You need to explore those various opportunities. But they also become distractions for you.
Right.
You want to do deep work, but at the same time, that's not something which you can do when you're part of culture that you're part of.
Right.
So in situations like that, if you continuously keep on focusing on perfection, you might do harm to your own self.
Right. What was that, while listening this line and beautifully, again, you explain, what was that surprising learning which you have learned from your journey?
Okay. So see, the thing is, up until so basically when people started celebrating me, people started expecting me to talk on platforms, they started inviting me, that is where I realized what I have done in my life. Otherwise, if you see, for me it was all about navigating through my own struggles, which others were not able to understand, whether it is in terms of schooling, engineering, coming to corporate, then understanding who I am, accepting, going through a journey of gender transition, socially, legally, medically. I was navigating through my own challenges. I was trying to figure out ways how to pick up my own battles, which battle to fight, which battle to ignore. But it's when people started celebrating all that and they started inviting me, showering me with recognition and awards and praise, that is where I realized, okay, oh, all right, I have done something in life.
Good.
It's not
Wow.
because other thing and underlying reason behind that also is a lot of times individuals like me also go through very low self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
Because growing up, especially when you're constantly made to feel you don't belong here, you're not required, you're different, you're not a human, that is where then you also start developing that mindset that maybe they are right. Because if 10 people are saying that thing, imagine what a kid would think. They're right, because why would 10 people say they 10 people are saying similar things, similar thought process, then it's correct. And that is where you start developing extremely low self-esteem.
Yeah.
So I even today still struggle to celebrate my achievements because I just don't know. I don't believe that I have achieved something in life, because that's the underlying trauma, childhood trauma that I have gone through. And in fact, I did not have this realization. Therapy helped me understand
Wow.
these things, these aspects of my personality.
This was going in my mind. What motivates you? How you got this courage?
So, like for example, a situation happens, and at times I react in a way in that situation, which later on when I reflect upon it, I realize that no, why did I react that way? I shouldn't have. And then it starts bothering me that why did I react in a particular way in that situation where I could have handled it in a different way. That's what pushed me to get into therapy.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say that therapy tells you that you should choose this way, you shouldn't choose that way. No. Therapy helped me understand what is deep within me that is not addressed. What are the traumas which are still within me, which have not yet been addressed or not even recognized by me? Because unless somebody tells you, somebody deep dive, let's say you're growing up years, how you made to feel, what exactly happened, how did you navigate through it, unless somebody sits with you, talks about all these details, for example, I have a couple of friends who have been victims of child sexual abuse, and growing up, when they decided to venture into romantic relationships, valid romantic relationships, which were not working out, that's where when they venture into therapy they realized these are the childhood traumas.
Yes.
Which have not been addressed, which is causing them these struggles.
Okay.
Similarly, for an individual like me, when I suffered from, let's say, low self-esteem, when I sit at a table where, we see individuals who just bluff, not all, but bluffing is a quality which certain individuals have mastered.
Yeah.
And you are sitting with that individual who struggle with low self-esteem. So even if you know things, you are hands on, you have done, you have achieved things, you struggle to put forward your opinion, not because you are not competent, because you have your own battles to fight with. And that is what happens with lesser represented individuals at workplaces. Other thing is, when we talk about privileged individuals, they also fail to recognize their own privileges. And I'm not saying all, of course, I have amazing individuals around me. Even though they are privileged, they know their privileges and they ensure they are enablers to individuals like me who have these struggles to navigate through. But yes, at the same time, I'm surrounded by individuals who are blithely unaware about their privileges.
Actually.
Yeah, it's like, them considering taking an auto to office is a struggle. So yes, there are privileged individuals, but then now that is where I always say you have to pick your battles wisely.
Yeah.
You have to pick your battles wisely. If you continue focusing on the things that you can't control, you lose focus on the things that you can control. So on a daily basis, you have to remind yourself your focus is on your circle of control. Ignore everything else. Ignore everything else. So let's say somebody is getting celebrated and like recently, I mean, there is this very beautiful term I come across, false litmus test. So especially what happened during Olympics, it was a false litmus test for those pseudo allies, and a lot of those failed miserably. And suddenly you will see one of those getting celebrated on LinkedIn, but then that is where you need to tell yourself that, okay, I mean, that is beyond your control.
Yes.
Why are you getting bothered? Fine, let that person enjoy it. So
It's
yeah,
going.
that is how it is. Yeah,
Sometimes it's better not to react.
not to react. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's not about that person. It is about my own
Of
sanity.
course. Of
And
course.
why would I let my sanity, my peace, get affected by an individual who doesn't need any attention to begin with,
Yes,
right?
of course. So, what message you would like to give your younger one when they are going through the difficult time in their life, which actually see what I feel, as you said, the validation from the society makes you even more uncomfortable, and the low esteem thought process, I think it all develops from there. So what kind of your suggestions would be for, like, you took a help of therapist, but I don't think so that everybody is, and I think each and everybody is going through some of the struggle, any of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where being empathetic helps. So maybe what I would say is, they need to invest efforts in understanding their core. So there are various psychological techniques available. One of them could be around the pizza. You have slices of a pizza. Similarly, they can have slices and they can try to identify their core values using that exercise. So core values could be various things. It varies for every individual, but my suggestion here would be, apart from the chaos that is around you, invest conscious efforts in identifying your core values, because those core values will help you remain focused. Doesn't matter whether you're in corporate, whether you are working with some NGO, some different sector, you are an entrepreneur, or you're not doing anything, just sitting at home. But once you have those core value exercise done, you know these aspects of your personality, what you want to achieve, what is lacking, what you need to do, what you need to avoid. May not be 100% accurate, that's not what I'm saying, because we are humans at the end of the day, but at least some part of it that will help you remain focused, especially during storm. Second is, I would say, it's okay not to be okay, which I keep on saying. So like I said, I mean, we need to stop celebrating being positive all the time, being happy all the time, No, it's some days, some moments are terrible, and that is where it's absolutely not right to expect everybody to be cheerful and happy all the time. So it's okay not to be okay. You just accept, understand that part of it, that you're not okay, accept it, learn to navigate through it, and bounce. So yeah.
What you're saying, that's true, but I think that's required a lot of efforts, and it's not that easy. Like, I hope if you can just share with us, like, your transition journey, anything which was the negative part, and you have, you know, turned out positive for you.
Sure. So of course, the first thing was turning my own non-acceptance to acceptance.
Wow.
Because the kind of milieu surrounding, upbringing that I come from, any other individual from a small town, first struggle was accepting my own self.
Okay.
I got introduced, exposed to the information majorly because of internet and coming to a city like Pune. But then once you know the information, the realities, the facts, the battle is also accepting that yes, this is what it is. So that was the first thing, turning my own non-acceptance into acceptance. Then also getting my parents on board, friends on board. Then other things which are slightly funny also. So even today, if you look at our education system and all, still not very inclusion friendly
Yeah.
on certain aspects. So I ensure whenever, let's say, because I was, I was a merit holder in my school,
Oh.
and I was like one of those, like for example, what happened with Pakistan now, Nadeem won gold medal. Similarly, I had done a similar thing during my academia. So I was the first one to appear in a merit list. So I was celebrated. My name is there on the board in the school and all. So they sent me an invite for the prize distribution, annual prize distribution ceremony. So I ensure whenever I have time, bandwidth, I participate in these events, because just by being there through my existence, I am sending across this message, especially to teachers.
Wow.
This is very much possible. So maybe growing up, let's say I was an effeminate child, but that was not wrong. There was a struggle which I was going through. Same for college, psychiatrists. So during my self-exploratory phase, I came across these individuals who held degrees from reputed institutions, but like you said during our offline catch up, the degree was just for the sake of degree. There was no wisdom, there was no knowledge. So they hadn't learned anything from the degree, it was just there on the wall. So these individuals dismissed my identity. These individuals gave me suggestions, recommendations which were absolutely bizarre. So again, if possible, I definitely try to help them, rise above what they were back then.
I wish they must be watching this video.
Hope so, yeah. And of course, then I have my own website. I have my talks are available on various platforms like YouTube, which are very mainstream. So individuals who have, innate biases, prejudices, misunderstandings about LGBTI plus individuals, they can get exposed to it, they can learn through it. So that also pushes them. So like for example, let's say today we are having this conversation where I'm sharing openly, candidly about various aspects, and I have a certain credentials behind me. So that validates what I'm saying, right?
Of course.
Rather than not having those credentials. So that is why, let's say, whoever watches this video, that will push that person to, kind of question their thought processes, question their biases. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant effort. But having said that, I have also developed this skill of being smart, wise about it. I mean, I will be choosy which battle to pick, where to invest efforts, because that's not something which I want to do continuously, because it takes a toll on one's mental health also, right? So that is where then I need to constantly be wise about choosing my battles.
Right.
So yeah, that's how it is.
Wow. So what all are the major biases? Though I know few, but I would like to hear from you.
Um, See, major biases,
Especially in corporates.
yeah. Um, so see, the thing is,
Or the kind of factors which create biases in the corporate world.
so maybe I'll give you an example also so that I can explain it in a better way. So for example, when an interview is getting conducted, okay, the interviewer, if the interviewer's intent is to show off their knowledge, rather than letting the candidate speak, screening the candidate, understanding what the candidate knows, now see where it's going. So the interview turns out to be a setup where the interviewer is just showing off their knowledge, being rude, invalidating the existence of the candidate, and that is how the overall interview goes. And eventually what happens then, the candidate is not selected, even if the candidate could be competent also, suitable for that position. Or let's say the candidate comes from North India where the interviewer is from the South India. So the interviewer, no, if I hire somebody from South India, it will be better for me, I'll be able to connect.
Regional biases.
So all I'm saying is, I'm not tagging any particular bias. I'm saying it is about every individuals have these traits.
True.
So I might have similar traits also, may not be in this particular context, but maybe in some other context.
Right.
That is where what happens more often than not, privileged individuals who have been just raised in a very privileged setup, who have studied in very big multinational institutions, and that has got suddenly ventured into corporates and all. So that is where, when you have not seen these struggles, which might not be just about financial struggles, unless you have empathy within you, unless you have ability to understand the other person, you form sudden judgments, whether it is about that person's competency, whether it's about that person's caliber, potential, and then that judgment leads to various other factors.
True.
And not necessarily it can happen in the interview setup.
Of course.
It can happen also within the corporate setup also, once the candidate is in.
Yeah.
And that is why it is very important that regardless of which hierarchy you are sitting at, regardless of which technology you are working on, regardless of which region you are sitting in, especially leaders have to have empathy. And leaders need to speak about empathy. Leaders need to celebrate empathy. They need to ensure they bring that word up in every town hall, every conversation, every engagement, because then it becomes a norm.
Right.
And when I say empathy, I am ensuring that it's not just about LGBTI+, it is about all other aspects also.
Of course.
So that is why empathy is something which I see corporates really need to reflect upon, because
It is required.
yes, and that is where maybe trainings around empathy, conversations around empathy needs to be mainstream in corporate, because you can't make it all about insecurity, you can't make it all about a rat race, you can't make it all about going to the next level. It has to be about empathy, regardless of the level that you are.
Right. As you said, acceptance. What I feel, people, if we accept that yes, we have biases, half of the problem will resolve.
Yeah.
Everybody is
True,
having
very
biases,
true.
and the more just we have to more aware about those biases, I think this will be very helpful.
And be aware and try to address those biases.
Yeah.
Like, somebody might say, oh, I know I have biases, but that's okay. No. You have crossed one level, now get to the next level, address it. Because, you will see this behavioral pattern also.
Okay.
It's like giving a leeway to yourself by saying, oh, I know. Like, for example, I know I am like this, I know I am rude, but that's okay. No, you're rude. You need to address it,
You need some help.
you are short tempered. I mean, like in meetings, you scream and shout. I know, but that's how I lead. No. You need to address it, you need to fix it.
Correct.
That's how you know now you have biases, what you are doing to rise above them, what you are doing to
Alright.
fix them. That is
Right.
also important.
Right. Have you ever faced any kind of discrimination at workplace or kind of a biases?
So, like I said, so people, I mean, even though they know the term, they don't know the nitty gritties of it because they have not been exposed, or maybe they have exposed to the caricaturish, portrayal which has been not aligned with the mainstream societal norms. That is where they struggle to accept me even as a human. Like, I'm not saying all of them,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
maybe even if I would have been in their place, I would have gone through similar struggle because, again, I said privileged background where you have not been exposed, maybe only the term and which you perceive to be an alien term, but an individual is sitting next to you, and that is where there is this struggle of, what is going on,
True.
accepting it. And then once then maybe you have accepted the person as a human, then maybe a little bit of struggle around the competency and potential, which we discussed briefly.
Right.
So, but then at the same time, I would also mention this point that I have been blessed or have been fortunate enough to have amazing allies around me also.
Wow.
Because I don't think without these allies who became enablers in my journey, I would have reached where I have reached.
Wow.
Because, as you can see, the heteronormative population is too much around you. So, unless then you have these allies which you can lean on, things are not going to be, falling in place the way you want.
What I feel, sometimes there are kind of factors not only about discrimination, even biases, or maybe seeing things differently, of course, not always internal, it may be external as well. So one should, I think one should understand and accept, but see, acceptance is one, but helping, for example, any 20-year-old student who's passing out from the college, carrying any kind of a doubt, they're taking random decisions about their life, killing themselves, anything. So it's kind of these kind of behavior, don't you think so this has to be addressed in the society?
Um, See, my honest take on it is capitalism is responsible to that to a great extent. Meaning, some capitalistic honcho launches a platform where people can just create videos for a couple of seconds and seek validation through the likes that video receives.
Yeah.
And it's both ways. I mean, the videos are not necessarily about good things. The videos are also about obnoxious things. The videos are also about vicious, weird things. But they are also getting likes. And at the times that we are living in today, for the engagement part of it, people are intentionally creating content where there are negative comments,
Actually.
where there are not encouraging positive comments, and then they go on various platforms and say, but your negativity is giving me engagement, is making me famous. These are the times we are living in. And there is one very good Netflix documentary which was there during pandemic. I forgot the name, Social Dilemma,
Yeah.
right? So today we literally are lab rats. We are just sitting surrounded by propaganda. I mean, yes, we are exposed to information, but that exposure is controlled by, powerful entities. And that is why what you are being served in your plate, you don't know whether it's really true, it's
Yeah.
proper, especially when there are elections and something like that is happening. The information that is being served to you, you don't know whether it's genuine or not.
True.
And how will you validate it?
Yeah.
Because there is this left wing and right wing and everything, and equally everybody is running their propaganda.
Right.
So that is where I would say the generation in these times now, Gen Z, Alpha, we have made significant progress in terms of technology, access to information and all, but that has also led us into this world where you don't know what is true, what is not. You don't know what to believe in, what not. You don't know at what moment you are falling prey to somebody's propaganda.
Right.
And these are very dangerous times on that front.
I know. I agree.
And
How
that
to
is
deal
why,
with that?
sorry?
How to deal with that?
How to deal with that? Such a difficult question.
If
It is a
you,
difficult, very difficult question. How to deal with it? Because, um, how to
your
deal?
expressions were very cute. Let it be. Let's talk about diversity, which we were talking about, since biases and everything. But what I feel, companies like manufacturing and pharmaceutical, I'm not, commenting on any particular industry, but yes, these kind of industries are facing challenges to meet that diversity ratio, which is like not lesser than 5% or 6%. Similarly, on a IT side, it is more than 34%. I understand infrastructure, they're kind of working, but India 2024, we are sitting at this time and we are not even able to touch the 5% of diversity. And today we are talking about LGBTQ. And then how, don't you think so? We are running too much behind, and what kind of efforts, sincere efforts, will required by the industries? What kind of infra they should prepare so that diversity comes in the picture, as well as this LGBTQ term comes in the picture for corporate, and the real diversity will start.
See, now the problem is deeper. I mean, we can't simply look at the surface. We need to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
So if you see the societal fabric that we have, I mean, even today, just barring a couple of exceptions in big cities, how a typical marital setup works. In a typical marital setup, the household expectations are from
Women. Yeah.
And I'm not saying men are responsible for it. Even women are equally responsible for it.
Yeah.
I mean, mother-in-law expecting those things from the daughter-in-law, saying, we can use certain Hindi dialogues, right? So mother-in-law saying, अब तक इसने बाहर का ही खाना खाया है, अब तो इसको घर का खाना मिले. So that is why getting her son married off and constantly using those lines. Even we see that in movies, right? Doesn't matter whether they're using it for the humor quotient, but this is the mindset which is very much prevalent around us, where that that particular woman in a marital setup needs to take care of the in-laws, need to take care of the family, maids, house helps, cooks, everything. Now in that kind of expectational world, how can she work for 10 hours and 12 hours and put herself compete with a privileged gender who is giving 14% and 15% at work, because maybe he doesn't have to do anything else at home, everything else is taken care of, right? And that is where then the woman will choose something where it becomes a secondary kind of income. It becomes something where she doesn't have to give her 100%. She can give, let's say, 80% to her home, 20% to something to make that extra money, where her husband can buy a Creta over a Nexon. 3 BHK over 2 BHK. And that is why then they opt out for options which can be managed along with taking care of all these responsibilities. And that is why then where there is work from home available permanently, where the working hours are less, where let's say there are multiple flexibility factors, various flexibility factors, where nobody is expecting them to deliver, and like they're not questioned constantly, and nobody is pushing them to get promoted and all that, they lean on these options.
Right.
And that is why unless we address the bigger problem, just focusing on the diversity numbers and why are we not meeting the targets and all, this bigger problem need to be addressed. And I'm not saying it's not getting addressed.
Yeah.
It is, but it's a journey.
Yeah.
It will take some time, because of course I have now these male friends who help their wives,
Of course.
and they also take immense pride in it. It's not like something they're doing anything out of the world. They understand that unless they also help her, it is going to be difficult for her also to do justice to her job. So the numbers are less, the quantity is less, but definitely things are changing, and that is where I might need to put the onus on men also. They need to come forward and talk about these things. It is not about there is no attack on their egos. They need to come forward and talk about, create reels how you are helping your wives, create reels how you love cooking, create reels how you have embraced your emotions, how you are equally taking the load at home. Once we'll see these celebrations around us, definitely that will push the mothers-in-law to change their mindsets also. It is
And
very required.
even apart from mother-in-law or anybody in the family, women herself,
Yeah.
because they also start after going through the same ecosystem in the family and the culture, your mother family and then your in-laws family, so they consider is their whole responsibility around it. So I think this will change their mindset too.
And other thing now, this becomes the societal factor of it, aspect of it. Now, when you look at the business aspect of the corporates, doesn't matter whether it is manufacturing sector or IT or any other sector. See, um, when you talk about driving inclusion forward, when you talk about numbers, why the diversity ratios are so less and all, you also need to understand that you need to put money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
You can't just be doing lip service and putting uncomfortable questions to TAs and HRs when the overall setup is not encouraging investments towards running inclusion forward.
True.
Because unless you have money where your mouth is, how the ERGs or passionate individuals will be able to run their initiatives that they want to run. So a lot of these things cannot be measured from the lens of profit, because the balance sheet is very, very black and white. A lot of these things, especially when we talk about diversity and inclusion, just like talent, right?
Yeah.
Can you measure talent in a balance sheet? No.
No.
Can you measure? I mean, I know in the interview setup you have marking system and all, but that marking system is based on your analysis of the other person, and which is not 100% accurate, because you can't really measure everything in terms of numbers.
Correct.
Similarly, then when we talk about driving inclusion forward, encouraging lesser represented groups to be joining the workforce, we also need to ensure that we put our money where our mouth is. It is not about the balance sheet all the time.
Right. And what I feel, uh, first of all, businesses, whatever the setup it is, they should understand why my team has to be diversified. The
Correct.
need of the diversity. Can you highlight something why businesses, since you are working on a very senior level in a company, why companies should have diversity?
See, now this is where we need to understand maybe couple of examples which have really happened around us, because that will help us understand the product failures when diversity was not leveraged. For example, when safety bags in a car were launched, it was failure because it couldn't protect petite conventional womanly bodies, because in the product life cycle only typical conventional male bodies were leveraged, so that is where it could only protect bigger bodies, it couldn't protect petite bodies. Failure of a product, when the voice recognition system was launched, it failed to recognize conventional feminine voices, because only men with hoarse voices were leveraged in the product life cycle. Face recognition system, when it launched, it branded black people as gorillas. Google Maps. So when Google Maps was launched, let's say for example, we are recording it in the evening, okay, 10 p.m. I want to go back home. I want to use Google Maps. my concern will not be fastest route, my concern will be safest route, safety.
Yes.
That wasn't a feature on Google Maps when it was launched.
Right.
Because maybe some just conventional cisgender men sat together who were obsessed with speed, Formula One, created an algorithm, launched the product, and then they realized, oh, that's not the only problem in the society. There are women also who talk about safety, right?
Wow.
This is how diversity influences product life cycle. So it is about anything. When you have diverse, and I always say diversity is not about label. Diversity is about lived experience.
Wow.
Like people तो बोलने के लिए कुछ भी बोल देंगे ना, मैं ये हूँ, मैं वो हूँ, बट अगर वो lived experience ही नहीं है, तुम्हारे ऑथेंटिसिटी नाम की कोई ऑथेंटिसिटी ही नहीं है, तुम जो बात कर रहे हो. यहाँ वहाँ की सुनी बातें सोशल मीडिया पे व्हाट्सएप फॉरवर्ड सुन सुन के आके तुम ओपिनियंस यहाँ पे ला रहे हो. देयर इज नो ऑथेंटिसिटी. दैट इज वाई लिव्ड एक्सपीरियंसेस आर एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट. व्हेन यू हैव दीज डाइवर्स लिव्ड एक्सपीरियंसेस एट द टेबल, that is how you have diverse perspectives which push you to think in various directions. That is why diversity is very important.
But what I feel, ठीक है, diversity भी हो गया, but until unless do you feel when inclusion is not there, diversity makes any sense?
Correct. Very true. करेक्ट. सिंपल एग्जाम्पल, डाइवर्सिटी के टारगेट मीट करने के लिए चलो हायर कर लिए ड्राइव रन करके, 6 मंथ बाद सारे के सारे लोग छोड़ के चले गए.
Because they didn't feel
Correct.
included.
So there cannot be diversity without having inclusion in place and equity in place. Absolutely. So the actual, and this is where the conversation has to be about equity. The conversation has to be about inclusion. So the focus, the primary focus should not be diversity. Primary focus has to be equity and inclusion. That cannot happen without diversity. So unless you have an equitable framework, unless you have equitable policies in framework, number तो हम यूँ meet कर लेंगे. आज I'll put job description on LinkedIn. इतने सारे मुझे profiles आ जाएंगे. I'll pick up the diverse candidate. आ गए. 6 महीने बाद छोड़ के चले गए. Who cares, right? That is why then equity and inclusion has to be the primary focus, because that also pushes me understand what are the gaps. Why did these people leave? मुझे क्या करना चाहिए?
Right.
So that these people don't leave, and I also need to introspect, right? क्यों हुआ ये? जैसे कोची मेट्रो, which is available in public domain, बहुत न्यूज़ में था, women from transgender community were hired, Hijra community, they gave employment to these women who were lacking skilling, but then 6 months down the line, all of them left. So what was the reason? What went wrong? What can you do to be an enabler? How can you create an equitable framework for these individuals to continue like surviving and thriving? That's what matters. So when the focus is equity and inclusion, the motive is learning, changing and growing.
Wow.
When the focus is diversity, the motive is tick.
Yes.
ये difference.
Inclusion requires real efforts, honest efforts by the organizations.
Like when lip service करनी है, then the motive is diversity. When actual intent है, passion है, deliver करना है, then the motive is inclusion and equity.
Can you just quickly tell me what all are the real steps or the strategies where the organization should follow to create, to make sure that the people should feel inclusive?
Correct. So, maybe...
For any community.
Correct. So, I will give you an answer from a broader perspective, not just corporate sector, not just employment sector, but even let's say education sector or any other sector. So, I would say forming ERGs definitely helps.
Okay.
ERGs is basically employee resource groups. So, now understand here, forming ERGs is not to divide the workforce or divide people, no. ERGs help to understand what are the gaps.
Okay.
ERGs help to kind of analyze those gaps and come up with ideas which can be implemented, adopted to address those gaps. So basically, ERGs continuously work towards creating a more equitable and inclusive environment
Okay.
in any setup. And that is why having ERGs really help, because ERGs keep you focused. ERGs give you intent, clear goals, and that is how then it drives towards equity and inclusion beyond
Okay.
diversity. But at the same time, ERGs also carry a risk. I mean, like I said, like for example, there could be an ERG for disabled individuals.
Before that, I want to know more about ERG. What is that? What is it all about?
So, ERG, the full form, as I said, Employee Resource Group, is basically an organization within an organization with a clearly defined goals. So, for example, if there is an ERG which works for LGBTI plus individuals, so basically that ERG's goal will be to create an equitable environment, a supportive environment for the LGBTI plus individuals to thrive in that setup.
Okay.
And that is how then these ERGs, let's say if we talk about corporate, this ERG can influence talent acquisition team, HR, to tap in the LGBTI plus talent. These ERGs can influence hiring managers to hire LGBTI plus talent. These ERGs can influence HR TA to create an equitable framework, policies, environment.
Okay.
So this is how ERGs work.
Okay.
But then ERGs also have that risk of compartmentalization, and that is where an effective measure is intersectionality.
Okay.
So there has to be initiatives which cross across ERGs.
All right.
That is how then you don't compartmentalize everybody. I mean, yes, there is a clearly defined goal, but at the same time you are intersecting. For example, let's say during Pride event, a person from the disability network comes over, speaks about it, or let's say during a tech fest, somebody from Pride network goes and talk about it. So that is how this intersectionality ensures we are breaking the compartmentalization and trying to make it mainstream, and that is where conscious efforts are required.
Wow.
And I would definitely say this is one of the improvement areas, especially in corporate.
Yeah.
Because like we said, disability is diversity is about that tick.
Yeah.
So that is where to show, oh, we have formed ERGs now, we have ERGs in the organization. Okay, done. But then those ERGs are literally dividing people, dividing workforce. That is not what the intent is. So, like if you see, I dream of a world where, let's say, a person sitting next to me says, I'm gay, and my reaction will be okay. But that's not the world we live in today. We for example, positive factor, we celebrate it. Actually, we don't have to celebrate it. We need to normalize it.
Yeah, that's more important.
So normalization should be the goal, and that will happen gradually. I'm not saying we are not making progress. We are. It's a journey.
I read a very good line about inclusion is not having share everything, it's being able to share everything.
Correct.
So I think that's a beautiful line which I read about the inclusion, and what I feel, yeah.
That's a very important point, because what is happening if you see at corporate, because now you are formed ERGs, you want to have numbers, so now you are pushing people to come out at the workplace.
To meeting those
It's
targets.
counterfeiting your intent, right?
Got it?
Just because now you want to show XYZ ERG is successful because these many employees have come out at the workplace. No, it's wrong. That is not why you are here for.
Right.
You are just here so that if somebody want to come out, they should feel safe.
Yeah.
They should not have a fear that I'll be fired. But doesn't mean now come out. That's not why ERG is formed.
So basically, ERG, the core objective which I understood from your conversation, our conversation is, it's a organization between the internal stakeholders, the diversified team, the synchronization create a different kind of a people in the organization. So the inclusion is the main core objective of ERGs, no?
So Like I said, ERG is a sub-organization within
Of
the
the organization,
organization.
yeah.
The intent is equity and inclusion.
Okay. So the
Creating a more equitable environment so that the overall set of framework is an enabler for this diverse candidate to survive and thrive. That is
right.
the intent of the ERG.
And I read one case study where some transgender being hired to an organization. She said, I don't want that people should behave differently in front of me.
Correct.
You know, that I want to normalize this kind of a culture. So I think these kind of community, these kind of sub organizations can help.
Correct, absolutely.
So that is behavioral change that will not change over the night.
But then, having said that, ERGs cannot continuously focus on that also, because the onus lies on the individuals too. As in, how can individuals constantly put the onus on ERG or on the organization?
Okay.
The employee, that individual employee need to change, right?
Of course.
Unless that employee rise above their own prejudices, biases, the overall organization can be extremely supportive, but this person is extremely horrible towards their own team.
So first of all, we have to sensitize them.
And beyond sensitization, we need to also punish them if not, they are not changing their, mending their ways. That is where zero tolerance for intolerance comes into picture.
Okay.
So, for example, you have ERGs in place, you have all the policies, posh and everything is in place, but then still you see an individual who is not mending their ways. Unless then you punish that individual, you will not set the right example.
Right.
That is why these steps are extremely important.
True. Creating, normalizing things for different thing for different people, I think is the most difficult.
See, that is what we are saying is, the organization, the setup needs to be an enabler for every individual. This is what equity is all about. For example, a cisgender woman goes through pregnancy,
Yeah.
okay, delivery. A cisgender man is going through it? No. Now, unless you have maternity leaves policies in place, you won't be able to have a cisgender woman at the workplace, right?
True.
Right? Similarly, let's say when you want a trans person working at you, trans woman want to work at your place, unless you have, let's say, gender affirmation surgery coverage, you're not being equal.
Right.
You're being biased. You're being favorable to certain employees and not to all employees. And that is why then when you say we are inclusive for all, you need to reflect on everybody. All includes everybody.
Yes.
So if you are rolling out certain policies for certain section, why there are no policies for the other section? Why are you ignoring them, right?
Right.
So for example, when we talk about employee, VOE, Voice of Employee Surveys. So if you go blindly by VOE outcomes, who is casting the vote? Majority of heteronormative population, which is still in humongous numbers in at the workplace. There will be hardly one person who will say in the comment section, because I doubt there will be a question in the comment section that I need a separate prayer room because I need to pray on Fridays. I need to pray. Somebody might say there is no, I struggle to take the lift because the buttons are not, I can't press the button or something like that. They don't align. So there will be very few individuals who vocalize these aspects.
Right.
So the votes to that particular suggestion will be very less. And then you will ignore it. You will only go by the populist voting, which will be around the typical thing. We need to have more team parties. We need to have rangolis on Diwali. We need to have, celebrations on festivals. These are the typical populist recommendations which will be considered.
Right.
That is why this is where ERGs also come into picture.
Right.
ERGs can nudge. Don't go by the popular suggestions. Think also on the not popular suggestions too.
It's quite interesting. Wow. Do you feel we need to change certain hiring processes in the organization to create diversity and inclusion in place?
Yes. How, like for example, again, this is my own lived experience. If I put a job requisition, let's
Yeah.
say on LinkedIn for my team, the first 100 profile that will hit my inbox will be of cisgender men.
Right.
Okay, because they are there always keen on opportunities, looking for change, that is why the first 100 resumes will be of cisgender men. And then if I just go by that, I will have team of all cisgender men.
Right.
What I need to do then in that case, I need to invest extra efforts, extra time. I need to analyze which all platforms that are available for me, with whom I can partner with to seek resumes which are beyond cisgender men, which are organically, naturally just hitting my inboxes.
Yeah.
Are there any ERGs in the organization which are encouraging diversity hiring? Any TAs who are working on that? Can I partner with them? Can I partner with some external entity? Can I tap in that repository of resumes, and then can I screen those candidates? Can I invest more efforts? Similarly, then when screening is happening, do I have a diverse panel in place? Otherwise, those biases can kick in.
Correct.
And that is why to question that bias, that is why to have a very neutral interview process, do I have a diverse panel in place? And other thing is, senior leaders talking about inclusive hiring during their conversations.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the debate becomes, my skill set is very niche skill set and it is extremely difficult to get a talent, diverse talent on that, which is a very normal justification factor. That is where senior leaders need to question it. What efforts have you taken? Show me. Right? When you are claiming that the talent is not available, I would like to see the efforts that you have taken.
True.
Justify your claim.
Right.
So things like these definitely matter.
Wow. I would like to understand from you, as you said, leadership role plays a very important role over here. So, how do you see today's leader and the future leader?
Okay. So, see, we live in authentic times, okay? That is where even today and tomorrow also now we need authentic leaders, because we will have authentic individuals, authentic workforce, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who are ready to embrace their authenticity. It could be around anything, and that is why we need leaders who are comfortable around this authenticity,
Right.
who are capable enough to leverage this authenticity for innovation to align with the organization goals.
Correct.
That is why conventional way of leadership, which may be written in the books, need to be updated, need to be augmented to navigate around this authenticity. I mean, let's say you have a leader who thinks an effeminate man cannot be a good manager. No, you might be surrounded by 10 effeminate men today at the workplace.
Right.
Right? This is what today and tomorrow's leaders need to have. I mean, having lived experiences would definitely help, but if not lived experience, at least have that intent, at least have that appetite to learn, to understand this authenticity, to navigate through this authenticity. And also the other challenge that tomorrow's leaders will definitely face is around ADHD, wherein we live in times where instant gratification is matters, where number of likes matter. Number of likes decide how much potential that person has, and that is where then that leader has the capability to go beyond this, to scratch this and try to understand the real potential of the person. You won't be able to tap in the correct talent. If you
Correct.
completely rely on the number of likes, the number of views and that kind of a scenario, things are going to be tough. So you need to go beyond that. And similarly, the attention span, right?
Nice.
Because of the social media platforms that are there, the attention span has significantly reduced.
Wow.
So you have now, especially the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whose attention span is very less. So what can you do to ensure these individuals are engaged and leveraged to meet the organization goals? So these are the new skill sets that are required for the future leaders to develop.
Correct. So, would you like to give any advice for your younger self?
For my own younger self, um, so first thing, of course, I think because of my surrounding, I was too harsh on my own self. So I wish somebody would have told me back then, it is okay not to be okay.
Wow.
In fact, this term itself didn't exist back then. So I wish somebody would have told me that it is fine. I mean, so that is one. Second is, like I said, the low self-esteem factor, which is, of course, the childhood trauma has something which has led to this. Again, I wish I had somebody in my life who would have helped me understand, what is going on around me and help me still keep my self-esteem intact. Then apart from that, I think, yes, of course, I have been blessed with amazing parents who were supportive, who believed in my potential. Um, um, and yes, one of the, but my own struggles are also responsible for not having friends, especially during school time, because I chose the option of getting into a bubble to maintain my own peace and sanity.
Right.
So I wouldn't really say that the surrounding was more responsible, it was equal responsibility. The surrounding inflicted things on me for me being different, but at the same time, I also gotten into my own shell. So I had somebody who had held my hand and helped me break this bubble and make things a little more normal.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I think this discussion was very, very useful for especially for those organizations who's really seeking for diversity and inclusion. So, मुझे लगता है मैंने बहुत सारी trainings and as I said, I'm certified post trainer and diversity inclusion. But the today's discussion really felt me speechless about the real definition of diversity and the conscious efforts which is required by the corporates to to create inclusion, which is more important. So what I feel, this will be very, very useful for the audience, and I would say thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here and spending time on HR Scoop with us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot. It was really amazing.